Our diploma is in communications and digital PR. So a lot of that you have to think about, who are you talking to? We spend a lot of time at the start of the course thinking about our target audience, looking at, people come in and think they have an idea of who their target audience is, but when actually, questioned on it and probed on it, they kind of come back going, actually, I don't know. And at the start of the course, I like to flip things a little bit and say, right, you know what, take out your social media feed. You could even do this morning if you want to. If you have a phone on you or whatever, if you're on either Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, and you can do it if you want, scroll down through it, see what ads are being shown to you. Why are you being targeted? What box are you fitting into? And that's a really good process at the start of our course, because in our own minds, we think maybe we fit into a certain box, a certain demographic, a certain psychographic, but actually it's something else. If you look at Facebook, and if you haven't paid the €13 to avoid the ads which popped up last week, you'll still be able to see that, okay? So these are the key pillars of the program. So focusing on communication, looking at that audience, finding out who they are, building a buyer persona around who exactly you're speaking to. Storytelling. Storytelling is key at everything. We all have a story to tell, no matter what your industry, no matter what company you're working for, we all have a story. And a lot of people might come as well and say, listen, our business, it's kind of boring, we're dealing with this or that. But there's a story everywhere, and everywhere there's people, there's a story. This morning, just scrolling on Twitter, before I came in, Darren Frehel was at the under-21 game last night. He's a reporter with RTE, and he had a lovely piece with Kevin Phillips, who is an under-21 player, who in a 1-minute soundbite was able to give an insight into everything that went into him representing his country last night, scoring his first goal for Ireland, and how impactful that was, just hearing that story. He's in England at the moment. He's been, transferred away from the club that he signed with. But for him, it was all about the journey he was on, and that his mother was actually in the stand watching him last night, because she's not able to do that every week. She's not able to go to his games. The reason I've chosen that is that in 1 minute, Darren was able to capture all that through the questions that he asked. And it's just such a lovely, powerful video, and you might find that Darren he's on Twitter, he's on LinkedIn, he's probably everywhere, so you'll see that. So that's on storytelling. Your brand is so important as well. What does your brand stand for? Under that umbrella, we spend a lot of time looking at, the tone of voice. So companies, they can spend so much money, and I'm sure Lisa might even go into this, what's our logo, right? We need to get our logo right. What does that look like? We need to be on everywhere. Okay, you set up TikTok, let's go on Facebook, let's go on Twitter, let's be on Instagram, let's do all of that. But if you're on all those places and your message is not consistent, then people are kind of like, oh, what's going on here? If we had this course over 3 days, or if we did this talk over 3 days, and I rocked in every day, and I was a different, I delivered it differently, you'd be kind of like, what's going on here? It's the same with your brand. If you're showing up and you're inconsistent, you're confusing. And that's the way it comes across for people if they're looking at your brand. So it's about getting that consistency, your tone of voice. I often give the example actually of Spin South West. I worked in Spin South West before, and when I think of Spin, if I walk into their radio station, I know that it's youth, it's fun, it's pink, it's a fun vibe. It doesn't take itself too seriously. If I go on their social channels, I get the same vibe. If I meet their cars, their promotional team, you get the same vibe. It's the same across the board. So if you're looking at a company like that, that's a good example of how they're so consistent. We start thinking about how can your brand become consistent, and how can you as a person as well, I suppose, be consistent. We look at digital and traditional media. So digital, we're looking at all the platforms, and I suppose digital has really disrupted how you can tell your message as well. There's a great campaign driven by Leah. Some of you might have seen that. Have you seen it? With Johnny Sexton, Richie Sadler, Johnny Sexton, Cora Staunton, Leona Maguire. A really nice video series that they did around the time of the Rugby World Cup, so very timely as well. And it was Henry Shefflin, sorry, I'm not sure if I mentioned him, but key sporting personalities in Ireland, that there's 10-minute videos, which in the course I say keep away from long form videos, but sometimes it works. So I have an interest in sport. I'm interested in watching to the end. I want to know what drives Johnny Sexton. I want to know how he is so good, what got him to that place. But also I want to see him chatting to Leona Maguire and seeing the dynamic that exists between them and how their shared experiences exist. So that's a really good example of a campaign that exists now, but 10 years ago, how would you get that? How would people see that? You know, Leia might say, I want to sponsor something on RTE, but then RTE say, well, we're doing it our way. You know, it's our thing. Our, you know, commissioning editor, our director, they'll design how that looks, and then you're losing all, you know, how it works. So now Leia can say, actually, we're going to get these in the room, and this is the way it looks, and we're going to push it out. So just an interesting, I suppose, the disruption between digital and traditional media forms. The other thing with traditional media is often people just don't know how to get their message in the media. You know, they don't know how to get to the radio station and say, listen, we have an event on, do you want to come? Sometimes it's hard for them to know how to get that. Same with print media, and the same with traditional, maybe TV as well. You might have a story that warrants that as well. So we work on that and building media relations. Industry insights are really key, and that was echoed earlier on this morning as well. So I'm delighted that Lisa is on board with this module in giving, you know, her expertise on the module in terms of PR and what works for her, and giving just real tangible case studies, which I think is what everyone wants to know as well. We can talk about things for as long, you know, or whatever you want, however long you want to talk about things, but seeing things in action and seeing how they actually work in real life is excellent. So I think we've mentioned just the background and give a good sum up of both of us, so I won't spend time here. This is our call, and it's funny actually that on our calls on Wednesday nights, the group that we had felt that it was like a kind of a therapy session every Wednesday. We were getting together, and it was a bit of a laugh at the start. Maybe I shouldn't be sharing that, but that, you know, it was a really nice safe space for people to say, this is actually happening in my organisation, without giving away any trade secrets or the internals. But it was really good, and that shared insights and shared experiences, it's very comforting at times as well, because often we feel, especially if you're in a larger industry, that you're on your own, whereas, you know, this is happening in different industries that might be polar opposites. They might have, you know, completely different outputs and everything else, but you know, that shared experience is really nice. So I'll let Lisa deal with her masterclass, but I also had Kathy Cullen from Jury Communications talk to us about LinkedIn, and hopefully today you leave with, and I'm going to share some of the insights from Kathy, but you leave with some tactics and tips that when you are using your own LinkedIn. And how many of you here are on LinkedIn? Just as, yeah, so a majority of the room. So there's actually 2.7 million, and they call them members on LinkedIn because it's kind of more grown up, I suppose. We're all members, we're not like users or anything like that, but 2.7 million members of LinkedIn in Ireland. So if you take it that you have to be over 18 really to use LinkedIn, I mean, I have a 12-year-old, he doesn't even know what it is, so you know what I mean, you're over 18 if you're on LinkedIn. So that's 70% of the available population in Ireland are on LinkedIn. So it's a really good core space. A lot of people have transferred over from Twitter. So anyone that was kind of, I suppose, like an expert in their field who might have been sharing insights on Twitter, they've moved to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn are now rewarding that as well. So they're rewarding you. If you're giving valuable content to LinkedIn, the algorithm will reward you. And I just want to share some of the insights from Kathy actually that night around the algorithm. So when you're posting, if your posts more than once in an 18-hour time frame, on your personal profile now, this isn't your business profile, you'll be penalised. So what's that saying to us? That's saying, don't be spammy, don't be going on every few minutes going, you know, this is my inside of the hour kind of a thing. It's give valuable information and it will be rewarded. Nurture your post. So after you post something, you know, respond. If people are commenting on your post, you know, respond to those comments, you know, say, give some more of maybe of an insight on it. So if you post that you're attending something or there's a conference on, maybe in the comments you can say, and also somebody else will be there sharing insights on this, or, you know, if it's something like that. And do that in the first 12 hours. That's the new and insightful comment after 24 hours for better results. So what is that telling us? And this information is from Just Connecting. They're on the algorithm research there, okay? So it's telling us that the fast growth phase in the first 8 hours is based on the engagement within the first 90 minutes of publishing. So if you're in the habit of saying, right, I have to post to LinkedIn, it's on my to-do list, but it's on Friday at 4:30 or 5 o'clock when you get to it, then forget about it. You know, you're not going to get engagement. You know yourself. LinkedIn is more of something you've opened on your desktop. You'll get to it during the working day, and after that, it's kind of forgotten. So just flipping things around a little bit. Try and post early in the morning. And if it's something that you're doing on a Friday, say, listen, I'll park it until Monday. I'll come back to it again and do it again. post yearly to maximise that 8-hour engagement phase. So I just thought they were really key insights from Kathy, and she did a whole host of interesting, I suppose, or conversations around even, putting your thought leader in your organisation. So that might be your CEO or someone like that you try and build up their content as well. Eugene Hogan from Teneo. Eugene is a former journalist, so expert storyteller, and did a great workshop as well on storytelling. So thinking about what makes for a good internal communication story. So something must be new, a development, an initiative, a news story, a human interest story. So people at the heart of all stories, and even just if you're posting to have people in them, that's what people want to connect with, and that's what you identify it. And they come down to two types. So you have your news and feature, are your two types of the interest that you have there. So when crafting messaging, then just to think of your 3 C's, your clarity, keep the language simple and clear, like what we heard this morning, so nothing gets lost in translation. Colour, bring the message to life with a story, analogy, or a visual. And credibility, ground the message in hard evidence as well. So I just wanted to share some of the industry insights that we had, because it is key to all these programs. I think just getting people from industry coming in and sharing their insights.
It was so good to work with Aoife and other industry experts on this, because we all had such crossover. I came on the week after Kathy, and it was so funny, we really highlighted LinkedIn and the people that we were working with on that course. It was just so funny. Everybody was thinking about how they proposition themselves better on LinkedIn, possibly because they all want to leave their jobs. So we had a good laugh about that, because we all have been in that position. And one of the things we really looked at was, how do you talk about yourself on LinkedIn without tooting your own horn too much and having that real Irish thing where the worst insult in the world is somebody says, geez, that one thinks she's great. And it's such a bizarre thing, definitely working here. And it's the biggest obstacle I face when working with individuals and or companies. It's that thing. It's like they don't want to ever seem too big or too big for the beats or too much in the know. But it's one of the things that I think we have to get better at. And it's one of the things I love doing, because you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And I always want to say that to people as well, to really, follow through with action and not just be a talker, because they're one of those people. And the talks this morning were so great in terms of like how we all work together, how we problem solve, who are the blockers, who are things like that, and the offloading of problems. So it really is, our brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And if you were to think in your own head, what do people say about you in a professional or a personal sense? Would that be a positive thing right now, or would it be a little bit on the other side? But to always think about that and what you deliver and what you bring to the table, And I think that comes from a real standpoint of energy and your own drive and how you communicate with people. When I was listening this morning about the critical thinker, I think it's all about how we deliver a message. I think if you can deliver it in a softer way that people want to hear what you're saying and not be aggressive and things, I think so many problems can be solved so much easier. But often it's the delivery. And we were laughing at the coffee break, about like caps on and, exclamation marks and things like that. All those things, if you weed them out of your communication style, you can make such a big difference to your working and your personal life as well too, because we're here for it all. When I first started working in public relations, my background was journalism, and then I crossed over to the other side. And it was really the start of us all kind of putting ourselves on the internet. And it's still very different and a very hard place to put yourself out on there. And the digital landscape now has changed so much. And I really, really agree with Aoife that LinkedIn is the professional place to be. And if you want to talk about things there, or even be a thought leader and learn from industry experts, and even to share strategic thinking, effective communication styles, that's where you want it to be. It is not the place to post about your new cat or dog or what you had for your lunch. And I'm glad that LinkedIn are penalising people for overpopulating that space, because I think we have enough of it on Facebook and on Instagram, and let's not even get into WhatsApp groups that we all don't want to be in and are on archive at the moment, because it's not something that we want to get into. But I am constantly learning, adapting and growing, and this year I actually had the opportunity to go in and be a lecturer for 11 weeks on the Masters in Global Communications at the University of Galway. And it was my first time ever doing that, and I'm working with students a lot younger than me and some older than me, and I learned so much in the last 11 weeks, like that nobody reads a newspaper. I brought in the Sunday Times. We were doing a case study on Red Bull, and I said, did anybody see this at the weekend? And I was met with, and I was like, wow. And then it was so funny. They handed in their assignments to me last week, and all of them did a case study on Red Bull, which was so funny from that. And we've really, I know everything about Red Bull now, so if anybody wants to talk to, I didn't even think anybody drank it. Let's just say they do. But like, it was just so funny. And I was like, wow, it's all about adapting and changing. And I think that that's a huge thing as well too, about your brand, you know. And when I was on the call with Aoife and her students, it was really a thing about like, who are you talking to and who is your audience, but also what do you bring to the table? And I don't know where this starts from, but I was always told, as a tall woman, and if there's any tall women in the room, you're always seen as a bit of a troublemaker. Don't know what it is, it's the height thing. Literally, I was in primary school, I was this height then, and I was taller than everyone, and I got blamed for everything. Now, I've left that trauma in the past. I'm not going to share this ever. But it literally was always like that. But my father used to always say to me, you stay in your own lane, you, and it irritated me so much from an early age. So I'm grateful for him for saying that to me, because it spearheaded me on. And I always think that, like, I bring something unique and fresh to this room, as does every other person that's in here. And I think that we have to value our own voice more and our own brand. When I say brand, I don't want you to think that, you know, that you all have to go out there and get, like, you know, personalized pens and hoodies and hats. But I'm just talking about brand in the overall context, because we all do bring something to the teams and to the people that we work with. And that's one of the things that I love about being in a room with people. You get to know people, you can have the chats, you can really feel an energy off someone. And I think that obviously we all had to migrate over to remote working, and it's great too, and digital from 2020 onwards, and it's great. But I love the mix of both, because I think there's nothing like meeting people in real life and getting that feel for them. And I really, really feel that it's a really strong thing, and to nurture those relationships in yourself as well too, and to know that you add value and don't ever feel that you don't. And it's okay to ask a question and to also say, I don't know. You touched on that earlier, that it's that feeling around, like, you know, you can't admit that you don't know anything. Whereas I don't know loads of things, and it really jars people when you ask that question. I'm like, sorry, could you explain that to me again, because I don't understand it. And initially there's pushback, then it kind of softens the room as well too. So try it even if you do know the answer. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, yeah. So one of the things as well for building your brand is we have to have a brand online now. Even if you're in, you know, public or private, I think for LinkedIn is a really, really strong place to showcase your skill set, what you do, what you stand for, and your other interests in a professional setting on there. So I would highly encourage everyone to really update their LinkedIn and to have it up to date, and to have a photo and a picture that's representative of you in a professional sense. It's absolutely hilarious. We did a whole module on LinkedIn and I thought, like, at times I was on OnlyFans. I was like, this is just not appropriate for what we're doing here. But, you know, it got everybody thinking, and that the duck face and kissing to the camera is not going to get you that job, you know. But it's good. It's just to talk about it and to talk it through, and even to put down, like, you know, one of the hardest things again for the students was writing down what they're good at and what their interests are. It's like, sometimes it's hard when someone asks you a direct question like that, because again, you don't want to seem like, you know, oh, I'm really good at that. Whereas if I asked everyone in this room, tell me 3 things you're really bad at, well, not a bother, you'd rattle them all off. And it's just kind of challenging those things in yourself, to put yourself forward and to say, I'm great at that, I'd love that. Or when you're not so great at something, it's like, I'm not great at that, but perhaps I could work with someone that is better on it. And then there's a more collaborative energy to you. And especially when you're going into a workplace or when you're working on your own, building that brand out, that you're a person that listens and a person that's easy to work with. They're the only things I want people to say about me afterwards, you know, and that I've great hair, but listen, there's no need to get into that now. So I really look at things with the brand. This will be more into relation to, I suppose, companies and planning and what you're going to do. Even I work with a lot of SMEs and a lot in travel and tourism and food, and they have so many boxes to tick in terms of running that business between staff, food, order and supply. It's so stressful, and it really, really is. And then they're trying to think as well too, how do I market my business? How do I accommodate for the months that are going to be a little bit quieter? How do I do all of these things? And then I also have to put myself on Facebook and share my life on Instagram and put this up on LinkedIn and be a really good person and be a really good employer. So it can be really nice for me to go in to really kind of dissect what's going on in that business and to really get to the bottom of that brand and to help them communicate better and consistently across all of their online platforms. And Aoife was absolutely right. You have to be consistent and authentic. It would be so easy to, it's so difficult, sorry, to actually come into a place and to talk about things that you know nothing about. But when you actually feel confident in what you're talking about, you do show up as yourself, you know, and you really put the best foot forward of your business and your brand. And then if you have team members there as well too, it's really about the culture. Because I always think it's about creating raving fans for your brand and for yourself when you're not there. So they're the people talking about what you're doing, what it's like to work there. It's a lovely place to go in, because believe me and you, if you go into a place and the staff aren't happy in there, that energy is felt across every single place that you go into, and you can feel it. You might know what's going on in there, but you'll know that it just wasn't a great experience. And that all comes down to people being told about the brand. I was at a thinking session, and it was really, really interesting. A gorgeous hotel, the Armada Hotel, as you all know, down there, and they've got B Corp status, and John was there and he was speaking about it, and they did a full inventory of the hotel inside and out, staff, what they were happy with. Like, they pay for their health insurance. I'm sorry, that's just phenomenal, like in terms of like what an amazing place to work. But the only issue that was coming back from staff there was communication. They felt that they weren't being brought along the journey enough to know where the business was going next. And that was it. That was their only failing. And sure, that's so easy to correct, you know, just better lines of communications internally with their staff so that they feel part of it. Their external brand was fabulous, and they just needed to bring their own staff on that journey with them. So there's always learnings in everything. So with now, when we're looking at technology, and again, now obviously we're all in this AI world, and everybody is, you know, it's really, really obviously topical, and we're all moving into that space. But there's a trust in a human connection that we still can never replace, and that will always be fundamental. So I would really always encourage brands and people to be that same person online. Like, I don't know if we've any celebrities in the room, bar Aoife, but if people meet people and say, God, you're the exact same online as you are in real life, like that's really refreshing for people to experience that. And I just don't think you should be two different people. I think that you should just be yourself and have that conversational tone. I'm really interested in that for people. We touched a lot on when you are trying to write those posts when you've done something great, or you do go to an event and everyone on LinkedIn starts with, I'm delighted, or I was honoured, and it's just the same, and it sanitizes language, so therefore people don't take it in as much. So think about it, how you'd explain it to someone that you're chatting to, your friend or your colleague. And you don't have to use the same language as everyone else, because language kind of becomes trendy as well. You know, we were all circling back and we were all going forward for a long time there, and everyone's just eye rolling on those emails, because you're like, who is this? Why would we be going backwards? Why are we going forward, you know? Or my biggest pet peeve was through that show Love Island, when that phrase came out, I'm not gonna lie. But why would you lie? Like, why would you open a sentence with, I'm not gonna lie? And now everyone says it as if it's like, you know, we are all reared on this sentence. So I'm a bit pedantic about language, so sorry if I'm enforcing all of these things on you now. When you go out of here, you're like, that email. But it really is that. So to be really thinking about things like that, your tone of voice, your messaging, and being true to yourself. We all have a lovely dialect here. We have a different way of communicating. I'll talk differently to you and everything. And I love having that coming across and understanding how people will phrase things. And it's really, really nice. And to retrain true to yourself. So with building your own brand online, it is all about connection, and it is about replying to people. That's your face to the world. So I always say to people, if you're going to be online and if you're going to be doing things there, like, it would be like me coming up and saying to you hello, and you actually ignoring me asking you a question, you actually just not getting back to me at a shop front reception. So when there's things going on online, if you're doing events, or if you're trying to publicize courses or whatever it is, it could be something in your personal life, you could be involved in a sports club, you could be involved in something arty or creative, and you need to get that out there. Don't ignore people when they talk to you online, and don't forget about the who, what, when, where, and how. They're the genuine questions people would have. They just want to support you, you know, and don't forget about that. That's all we want. You should have that obviously in your information to begin with, but people find it difficult sometimes to see very direct information, which I'm sure is a bugbear of many of us. So when we're online and then they have maybe an experience of us as people or a brand, and they have a good experience in real life and they have a good experience online, it just builds that trust, that credibility, and you then begin to have customer loyalty. I still think there's no better recommendation than word of mouth. Like, if you hear it from a friend or a colleague or someone that, you know, I had a great experience there, you should go, it was really, really good, or, you know, those things, they really add on, they add value onto everything. So think about that, because you have such an opportunity to talk to so so many different people online and then have an impact in the localized space that you're in as well too. I think like really our communities and where we live and that collaboration cannot be like overestimated its importance. I live and work in a place in Galway called Galway's West End. It's actually the West, but we just market it as Galway's West End. And we say it's been an overnight success after 20 years, you know. But we have really cemented something there, whereas now we look like we are finally coming into like to be an attractive proposition for our council to support us and funding from Europe. Whereas before that, because we've presented this absolutely amazing place online, and it's all community driven, but you actually have that experience when you're with us now. We're probably going to be one of the first areas in Galway to be pedestrianised. We're on the active travel scheme. It's been years of work, but it's worth it. But the reason it works is that we have everybody involved in that, residents, community, elders and business working together rather than segregated things, and that works really, really well. So one of the elements of online that I love and that I think that people forget, and obviously I'm a big fan of legacy media as well too, and it's important, is that on your own channels, you can tell your story in your own way. And obviously I don't mean to be telling fibs or lies or anything like that. I just mean you can craft a story in the tone and the style that you want to, so that people can get a feel for you online. And don't forget that either. As I said, don't forget who you are online. Talk in a way that you'd understand, and we don't have to use like highfalutin language and looking up different ways to say things. Say things in a way that you understand, and think about how you interpret information and whoever your audience is as well too. When we look at it though, it really does all come down to, I suppose, adding value for me is why we do everything. And then that all comes back to like the hardest stuff is really around the planning and the strategy. That's the lengthier times. And then to see what is the point of this, who is going to benefit from it. Mainly I would ask a lot of people that I work with for PR campaigns. It's like, I always say to them, why do you want to do this? Is it about having you in the Irish Times? Like, is that important to you? Is it going to build anything for your business? Is it an ego thing, or are we doing something here that you want to build a bigger brand awareness and everything? And it's funny, people haven't thought of that question until I ask it a lot of the time. And sometimes it really gets people thinking, and you're like, actually, that's not where our audience is. Whereas I'd love to be in the Irish Times for maybe like recognition, it's not going to benefit our business too much. So I just wanted to have a look at these in terms of like, if you're thinking of it, of building your own brand in work or online, and it all starts with, you know, the goal of what you're trying to achieve, and that could be moving jobs. You know, sorry if anyone's boss is here as well too, to think about that. For what job you'd like to be and what values and everything that you would bring to your next role. And LinkedIn is a really good place to do that. So don't, by the way, start uploading this afternoon with all these new skill set, because it might give it away, you know, just saying. So just to focus on your own self, which is your authenticity and value creation. And, you know, it really does take time. This is the thing as well too. I think that people with online as well, they just think, a lot of the time people are like, sure, we've someone here that can do this. But it takes as much time as it does with a relationship in real life, with real human connection. You really have to put some time into it. And with this would be more like for consumer led, it's like data driven, is just all the answers are through the data for your audience, and then you can refine and adapt your strategy at all times. And just make it count what you're doing online for yourself and what you're trying to do. So don't post for the sake of it, is what I'm saying. Post about what you're interested in. And definitely constantly look and review your strategies to stay relevant. And like with everything, just be innovative and be open to change. Isn't that what we all want? Be listening to people and like take on board constructive criticism. And if you have someone in your life that can give you that constructive criticism, definitely ask them. So I just wanted to finish on this, is that with anything, it's like with anything, it's not even related to the brand, is that your consistency is absolutely key. And to just be transparent. I think that that's what we all want now, isn't it? No highfalutin roundabout way. Like, you know, if you ever listen to a politician on the radio and they're asked a very direct question, and then they're like to say, well, I'd just like to start to say that this is a matter that's very close to my heart, and you're like, we just asked you, did you like a ham sandwich? And there's this like back context, and it's just infuriating. So definitely just be transparent. And then just what value and quality can you provide? Because that's really what we're all here, you know, to do to help each other along and to try and make our working lives a little bit easier. We spend a lot of time working, and I'm of the mindset as well too, you know, when people have this, it's also, again, it's just been sold to us that like we're only living for the weekends, and I really hate all that language. I hate this happy Friday, hump day, it's Monday, the doom and the gloom. Your working life is a huge part of your life. You meet some fabulous people through that, so enjoy it and bring your energy and your pizzazz to it, and don't just look at like 2 days of the week as the only time. Like most people on the weekends, they don't even do anything then, so I don't know what this is, we're sold a pup, aren't we? You know what I mean? So try and make all of your life great and just bring a bit of energy to everything is what I say, and you know, you'll be a lovely person to be around, and also you attract that energy back then. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, wasn't sure.